Hello and welcome to the How Long to Beat podcast. This is episode 21. Our podcast can officially drink and drive in America. I know driving's like 17 for you guys. Anyway,
16. I think
the drink is the point of the joke. Let's move swiftly on. This week, as always, it's Alex, Paula, and me, Rick, but talking about slightly different things than what we usually do. So we alluded to it a little bit last week. We've been playing a load of homebrews, a load of itch games. And what we're going to do is what we're dubbing the itch-stravaganza. We're going to talk quickly about what we've been playing besides the itch stuff at the start, and we're going to have a game of, say it with me, how long to beat the game at the very end. And that's going to bookend a big old discussion about a load of great and not so great little homebrews. So let's kick straight off. Alex, why don't you tell us what non-itch stuff you've been playing?
Yeah, so still kind of playing a bit of Super Mario 3D World. Like, again, just playing co-op with my partner. It's been a lot of fun. I do think that game is just best played with two people and no more. Unless you like to invite chaos into your life, then go to town. Still doing a little bit of Ring Fit Adventure, a little bit less now because my gym reopened. So, I'm masking up, working out, which it's not ideal, but it's definitely great. I'm like just being able to move my body again. And then I've also been playing Bioshock Remastered. I'm not like much further in than what I was last week. But still just loving that game. Although, goddamn, that game crashed on me. I was like, what? Right? It's a remaster and it crashed. I was like, what? Come on. And I've noticed there's some texture pop-in issues. It's just, I've been a little unimpressed at some points with like some of the technical stuff on this, where I'm just kind of like, you would assume a remastered fixes most of this shit, right? Like, you would assume that.
It's kind of shocking that it doesn't.
Yeah. Oh God.
I mean,
but yeah, like.
Oh my God! I just got this one.
Yeah. Okay, Paula. It's just loading in.
Like the textures.
Yeah, exactly. It pops in very slowly. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. It's just like I played this whole segment, and suddenly the game just like completely crashed on me. The autosave, like I had to redo like a whole level. And I gotta say, there's nothing more demoralizing than when that happens, because you're just like, God damn it. It just really interrupts that like nice form of momentum. But I mean, when it doesn't crash, this game is excellent. And it's really fun to revisit it after years. Like, I don't actually remember much of the game, honestly. Like, as I've been playing through it, I'm like, oh, don't remember this. So I feel like I'm touching it at the perfect time. Still playing Kid Dracula. I think I'm like real close to the end of that game. That game is balls hard. Like, I mean, honestly, I don't know. It looks all cutesy and stuff, but like if you got that as a kid, you probably cursed a lot. Like, it's a hard game. Like, I'm playing with save states, and necessarily I do not have the patience to get real good at it. With save states, I think it's a lot of fun, and it has some really neat ideas in it. It's a little slow at times, and I think that's, something you notice with a lot of Game Boy games. It's just that occasionally movement in the Game Boy games can feel a bit sluggish, especially from Konami. They seem to just...
I was going to say a couple of the Castlevania games are notorious for that on the Game Boy.
A couple of the Castlevania games are unplayable without ROM hacks because they're so slow. But yeah, I don't know. I think it's worth checking out. It's very fascinating. It's also, it's pretty funny because, like, it's basically youthful Dracula, like the dude who will later go on to say, "What is a man?" And you're just playing as like this child version of him. I also started playing, and this is the one that I will talk about a little bit longer. I started playing Loop Hero. I just noticed people like sort of talking about this, and I was like, "What's this?" And it was like real cheap on Steam. It was like $15 or something like that. And I was like, well, I mean, whatever. It's a roguelike, which we talked about this a little bit on Discord, but I don't know why I do this to myself, because I already know as I'm playing it that I am going to get bored as hell from this game. Because, it's all about that loop, and it's literally called Loop Hero. But I think it's unique enough that I really wanted to give it a shot, because essentially how it works is you are kind of like the dungeon master. That's really what it is. You're creating your adventurer's dungeon for them. So they're walking along this looped path, and the conceit is that it seems to be like there's this this villain who's kind of like erase the world, and your memories are completely gone, and it's like you're remembering things into existence. And it's really neat because you'll go and, for instance, place like, I don't know, a spider cocoon, and then that's going to spawn spiders on that tile. And then when you land on the air, you know, your little guy's going to fight them in an automated battle, and then you'll get equipment and you equip the equipment. But it's also a question of like, what kind of equipment do you want to put on them, right? Like, are you trying to max out your regen? Are you trying to max out your evasion? Like sometimes you can fall into the trap of thinking, oh, the higher leveled equipment, that's the best stuff. But it's like, not quite, right? Like there's a lot that you have to take into consideration. And it's very fun because you feel like you're really strategizing the entire time. And you can pause at moments to like plan things out. But it's also neat because you really can't just do the same thing every time, because the tiles that you play, also it's like a deck builder. So I know there's a whole bunch of stuff because you have cards, and the cards are what you place to build the dungeon. And what's really neat is that those cards interact with different tiles in different ways. So, and they don't tell you how they interact, but sometimes you'll go and you'll play something. Like I discovered this the other day, which, like, I don't know, not really a slight spoiler, but if you put a lot of mountain and rock cards together, sometimes you'll create a giant mountain. And then I met a new enemy type because of that. And so it was like, oh, that's cool. Like, I didn't know I could do this, right?
So when you're putting cards down, that's essentially with the goal of improving your hero.
No,
like,
it's making it harder for your hero. But also I'm
slightly lost. Like, who are you rooting for in this situation?
Well, you're rooting for your hero, but the reality is that for a boss to appear at the end of this, because you're on like this loop and there's a day-night cycle, and basically there's this tabulator that's showing you when the boss is going to appear. The boss only appears if you place enough tiles, if you fill out the map enough. So you have to place them, but some cards are harder than others, right? There's ones that are like Vampire Mansion. If you place like a fuck ton of Vampire Mansions, your hero's going to have to fight dozens of vampires, right? Every single time. And there's a day-night cycle, and every day new monsters spawn. So you're in this kind of struggle where you're collecting resources, which are also tile cards, and you also know that your adventurer does need to fight monsters in order to get better equipment, right? He can't just not fight them.
Right. So it's like a balancing act of hard enough to progress things, but not too hard as to. Okay,
right.
I'm with you now.
See, and after each loop, the enemies get stronger. They level up. So if you wait too long, you might have a guy who's got like no equipment, and the couple monsters he has to fight are like level 4, and you're getting fucked, right? Like I don't know, man. It's addicting, and it's very good.
It kind of reminds me of it's actually like a tabletop card game called Boss Monster, where with a group of players, each draws like a Boss Monster card, and that's pretty much your character for the game. But instead of trying to get the heroes to get stronger, you want to kill the heroes in your dungeon and not take damage.
Right. Yeah.
Yep. And you can also sabotage the other players' dungeons as well.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
That does sound kind of a little similar. It's really neat because it sounds at first like I thought like, oh, there's probably a lot of waiting around, but there really isn't. Like, you have to be constantly paying attention to what's going on. Because it really moves quickly and it's very exciting. So anyway, I'm going to keep playing it. I guarantee you I will not beat this game. But I'll definitely be playing it for a while, and hopefully we'll get fairly far through it. I want to at least beat the first chapter, you know? I want to at least get to there.
And in fact, before we bounce on, the Steam Game Festival that we covered-ish a few weeks ago is where that game got most of its hype from. It was one of the standout demos, and that's how that train got rolling.
Nice. Well, congrats to them. It's a lovely little game. Why don't we move off from me? Why don't we go to you now, Paula? Paula, we'll go up the list.
I haven't been playing like a lot of variety in terms of games besides the itch games. But I made a lot of progress on Gyakuten Saiban, or The Great Ace Attorney, which, by the way, is like they're trying to make these seemingly impossible to solve cases because they can. And I feel like the Ace Attorney team was trying out a lot of different stuff with this one, because even if it is Ace Attorney, there's like stuff that make it feel like a little bit different. In the case of, there are cases where you have to do like these great deductions with the help of certain great detective, for example. And it kind of feels like Mel Edgeworth investigation in the sense that you also battle outside of the courtroom, but it still feels super different. I feel like I like how they're doing it, like in this game, but I don't know if they could like pull it off in the mainline Ace Attorney game. Also, the trials. Oh my god. Oh, they have a jury system in the trials. So, besides the judge, there's the grand total of 6 people like watching the trial, and pretty much you have to convince them that your client is not guilty. And if you take too long, like pressing the statement like over and over again, like trying to look for another clue, they start getting impatient.
Oh god.
Interesting. Okay.
So I don't know if like in the next trial it's gonna be like all scripted if they get bored or not, or if they actually start getting bored the more you press the witnesses. But there's this huge like balance just behind the judge, and you can see how it is tilting over like a guilty or not guilty verdict, and it is nerve-wracking, like big time, because you know you're fucking up somewhere, or you know that people are not believing you. And yeah, that's the game so far. Also, just as we finished recording last episode where we made like what is a man reference, turns out that the prosecutor in this game like pretty much pulled like a what is a man throws goblet against the candle or lamp gesture, and it was like, I'm not even mad. That's amazing.
I feel like I'd hate that though. I always enjoyed like exploring all the different dialogues that were there, and like I think that would stress me out knowing that you can't do that because the jury will like not like that.
I think you still have plenty of leeway and you can explore the dialogue, and you are able like to save like pretty much anywhere and continue the game. So
you could save scum it. Okay.
But I don't think the game will punish you, because even if the balance is all the way down, there's like one final trick you can pull, like to get have the jury's like on your side again, and convince them like, please no, my client is not guilty. Give me a little bit more time. Also, the other game I've been playing is Zelda 2: The Adventure of Link, the second game of the Zelda series. I'm playing it on the Nintendo Switch Online app because I really need that rewind. It took me a while to get used to how Link manages in this one, because there are times that I feel he has like eyes on his feet.
What?
And I fell to my death many times.
Oh, ice on his feet. I thought you were saying eyes on his feet.
Oh no,
I was so confused.
He sleeps and falls to his death, and it is horrible. I'm getting better. I'm getting good at the game. I don't find it as difficult as the first time I tried to play it, but it's still like fairly challenging. And currently I'm like right after the first palace, and I'm pretty excited for what the game has to offer like in the later dungeons. It is a little bit less of a guide game than the first one, but still having like a little guide just to make sure you don't miss anything helps a lot.
Nice.
So, yeah. What have you been playing, Rick?
Wow. To be fair, much the same as I was playing last week. So I'm still playing Rocket League. I still have a love-hate relationship with that game. It's When it's good, it's great. When it's bad, I am very stereotypically sort of angry, shouting at the screen sort of thing. Not that that's ever going to stop me playing the game, but I'm still playing Freedom Wars. I like the vibe. I like the story. I like that it's on Vita. I'm not sure I'm sold on the gameplay. And that obviously is ultimately the kicker. And it's not the game's fault. The game's very well put together. I'm just not really into that sort of monster hunting style of game. So it was always sort of fighting with one hand tied behind its back in a sense. But I'm going to stick with it for now. I'm still relatively early into the game. And I'm going to see how it goes for a bit before I sort of make a decision either way. I'm still playing Ghost of Tsushima Legends. That's still fantastic. It might be a while before I finish it just because the back end of the story is hidden behind these raids where you need a party of 4. And you need to have like a certain level of gear to be able to go into it. So there's a fair bit left to play before I'm ready to tackle those. But like I said last week, it's more Tsushima, which is always a good thing as far as I'm concerned. And then the last one and the main one, it's interesting in the context of some of the stuff we were talking about in terms of Loop Hero and other roguelikes, is Hades, which has properly sunk its claws in now. I'm very on board. And I think it was interesting in terms of you talking about there always being a point where the cost benefit falls away for you in terms of the roguelike and you just burn out on it. And this isn't an original thought. I'm certain I heard it on some kind of YouTube video of some description, like a video essay or something. But what Hades seems to nail is the time between the runs, in the sense that you have this persistent hub world, you have these relationships that you're building with the different Greek gods and mythical characters and whatever else, going alongside the usual sort of persistent upgrades and things that you nudge that way. Particularly with the nectar that you pick up that you gift to characters to progress those things. I have a couple of times now found myself picking up nectar and almost being a little bit excited for when I die to have the opportunity to give it to a certain character. And I think that's why it's sunk its claws in with so many people, or I think that's a big part of it. Apart from the fact that it's a super giant game, so the art and the gameplay and the music especially is just pitch perfect. Is that in between is exciting in a way that most other roguelikes don't even try to make it.
Yeah, I mean, also, let's just be real. People like roguelikes, right? I mean, like, I'm just like, I tend to just be someone who I feel like the mechanics are too visible to me, Like, it's one of those things, like, often when I play a game, I kind of enjoy it when the mechanics are, I guess, I don't know, what's the best way of describing this? It's like, it feels like it's very clear that the game could have progressed faster, but is progressively locking me out of things. You know what I'm saying?
I do. I think it's a case by case thing though. Mm-hmm. I don't think it's most or even a majority of roguelikes that do it that way. But I definitely agree that when it's sort of I suppose it comes down to whether it's respecting your time as the player, because there are definitely games where they make themselves roguelikes for the sake of it and they just don't need to be.
Yeah.
I think with Hades, partially because of the way it was developed as an early access thing that they layered on top of, and also partially as a mechanism to let those relationships unravel over time. Mm-hmm. If you had a linear format, it wouldn't particularly work, and the story's built around the conceit of Groundhog Daying it over and over again until you can make your escape.
Yeah. No, I agree with you on that. And I mean, that's kind of what, like, I mean, that is what Loop Hero does as well, right? Like it has that same thing where I'm like, I actually get why I'm doing this and I understand why this is a loop and there's actually some intrigue here and I'm kind of curious to learn more, right? So like it does that well. But there's always this moment in every roguelike I play, no matter how good it is, where it's like I'm staring into the abyss and the game's like, you could have accessed this story in 2 hours instead of 50. And I'm like, like, and like you see it for that moment and then you forget because the game's great. It's just like, but it's just there, you know what I mean? Like, and it's fine.
I do.
Yeah.
For fear of us getting very off topic, like I think it's just a question of how lazy or not the developers being in terms of stretching content out. Yeah. I think it's the same as procedural generation. I think it's that same bracket where there's games that do it and you're just like, I would have much rather you put something in place and let me do it. And to bring it back around to Hades, they do that because although it's sort of random shuffles, the levels are specifically designed. It's not like we've made 5 or 6 tile sets and then an algorithm's going to throw them together from room to room. It's specific rooms that they've designed. You'll just see them in different orders each time.
Yeah.
But yeah, I really like Hades. And now that I've actually sort of given it the time to breathe and grow on me and everything else, I think I'll probably clear it out quite quickly. I can't see it being on my playing for more than a week or two, because it's the main thing that I'm giving attention to. So yeah, that's me. And we should probably, because we've got loads to get through, get straight onto the itch-stravaganza. Now, what we're going to do, for everyone who's listening, if you want to check out any or indeed all of the games that we've been playing, we've set up an itch.io page. The link's going to be in the description, or if you just want to type it, it's HLTB podcast.itch.io. And not only is every single game that we've played in a single collection, there's also smaller collections of what each of us would recommend, or if you will, recommend. Yeah, it's making a comeback, baby.
I'm just gonna say to all our lovely listeners, if there's someone to blame, it's Rick.
Yes,
Rick
I am
made
very
all the
much to
puns.
blame for it. Everything you're about to hear and experience is my fault, and I own that. Sorry, go on.
Oh, I was just gonna say, yeah. So, like, to give like a little introduction on like what the heck this whole thing is. Basically, like I started exploring Game Boy homebrews because I've been developing a game on Game Boy Studio with a friend, and I just sort of like mentioned this a little bit to Rick and like showed a couple things, and then Rick kind of went down the rabbit hole hard, I think, and pulled us down with him, and we've just kind of been going on with all these homebrew games, and for those who knows, homebrew is kind of like a sort of an irrelevant term now, if I'm being real, because it used to really represent games being made for older systems and handhelds, right? And that's still a thing now, but the reality is that when you make a homebrew, it's kind of accessible in so many different ways now because you can play them through browsers, right? So it's like, yeah, it's still homebrew, I guess, but really it's browser games now too.
It's more like the indie renaissance is the word I'm looking for. In the sense that, like, you have your bigger indies, things like Hades, where it's super giant. There's like 12, 15 people. Yes, it's a small studio, but to all intents and purposes, it's a proper studio. And this is sort of the second coming of the random individual in their bedroom throwing something together. And I'll tell you specifically what started it is Dedius, when you played it a couple of weeks ago. I thought that sounds really good. I'll download it. I'm putting the Mario Land game on my flash cart anyway. I'll whack it on. And wouldn't you know it, when you download a game on itch, they very cleverly recommend like 8 similar games. Suddenly I've got 15 tabs open. I'm like, holy shit, what's happening now? And and then we were like, why don't we make this a thing? And in the spirit of that, we should probably start with a game that is both playable on the Game Boy or flash cart of choice, and also one that all three of us have played, which is a little horror game called Opossum Country. Really short, like 15-minute experience. I didn't realize until afterwards, A, that it's a one-man project, and B, that it was a game jam project, because it's really professionally put together. Absolutely recommend anyone with 15 minutes to spare give it a go, whether you throw it on your hardware or just play it through the browser. It's very, I hesitate to say unique, but it has a very singular vision and sense of style about it. It really feels polished and well done in that respect.
Yeah, it's very like American Gothic in some ways, right? Like it has such it has such atmosphere to it. And I have to say, I played it on my Game Boy Color because I was like, yeah, come on, if you're gonna make a homebrew Game Boy game, hell yeah, I'm playing it on the original hardware. And it's so amazing to do that because it really does feel like. And I think this is what's so kind of beautiful about a lot of these homebrew games, and especially the homebrew games that you can tell aren't trying to emulate a game they played when they're younger, right? Games
No
that
pun
are
intended.
yeah, no, there you go, right? They're trying to kind of create something that is reminiscent but new. And so it really feels like you're like, this is so cool, right? Because it's a concept that I'm like, no way this would have came out on the Game Boy back in the day. So yeah, I don't know. I don't have much more to say on this one, but I like this one a lot.
Yeah, what did you think of this one, Paula?
I am impressed by the game, like in many ways, because it is a really short game, right? But to get to the horror part, the way it does it, I think it is very well done. And I'm also surprised by how like good and expressive the art is, given the limitations of what they used to create it. Also, a game jam, like game jams are usually like 48 hours. How did you make this in 48 hours? Like my guess is that like any kind of polish was like done after,
Probably.
or like the Game Boy kind of port thingy was done after. But still, 48 hours is not a lot of time.
Yeah, well,
No,
especially if you
I
like
will
a topic, because you get that topic.
Sorry, I will say Itch does run a number of week-long game jams. They've done some of those, so it's possible it was made in one of those. They've sort of expanded the lengths of them, but still, I know, right, a week. I'm like, oh my god, takes me a week to make like a couple sprites.
I've actually been to a game jam before, and you don't sleep much in those. Like, we were taking turns sleeping under the table with my team. We were like 5 to 6 people there. And at the end of all, everyone has these like beautiful games, and we have like this glitchy mess because one of the games we made had a final boss, but you couldn't get to it because of a glitch at the final part of the game.
Oh no.
It is a lot of fun. It is super draining. I can't even imagine a week long game jam.
Yeah.
Like sleeping practically nothing and doing this. It has to be fun, but still intense.
Yeah. Well, what's neat too is like this game was made in Game Boy Studio. So for those who don't know, like Game Boy Studio is essentially, and there's I think there's one for the NES too, but it's kind of like a visual based coding system to make, making games for the Game Boy very easy. Remarkably easy, actually. And you can still make creative stuff like this.
And for a game that's only 15 minutes long, I think I had 4 different theories before the actual ending happened.
Nice.
So that was kind of impressive. Nice little segue, just to skip ahead a little bit. So the creative Ben Gelter, I also played one more of his games, which is a browser-based one called The Last Employee. I think it's another Game Boy Studio one, but there's no Game Boy ROM version of it made available. And it's like a narrative sort of walking simulator type thing about a dystopian future where AI have replaced almost all human jobs, and you're one of at the start of the game, and then by the end of the game, the last human employee of any business anywhere. You're like a CEO of their equivalent of Walmart, and it makes you like make these narrative choices, and you've got a board breathing down your neck. It's quite clever. I didn't like it as much as some of the other narrative stuff I played, because almost a little bit like what you were saying with the roguelikes, I could sort of see the Puppet Master strings a little bit, and that ruined the experience a little bit for me. But it was still a really nice experience. It was very engaging in terms of the story it told, and I think it succeeded at what it set out to do. So yeah, another green tick next to Ben Gelter's name as far as I'm concerned, I suppose.
Yeah. Nice. What about, so I think in terms of actual like creators on here, like I'm not sure if I'm saying this right, but Cecile Richard, she has created some incredible little poems, interactive poems, right? And I know we all played Novena, which is this beautiful. So yeah, it's like on Itch, usually it says like run game, right, on your browser, and this one it says like run poem, and it's such a unique and kind of moving experience. And I played a couple of her games. I know you did as well, Rick, and I do think this is the strongest of the ones that I've tried at least. But it's this kind of beautiful little game where you're going to visit the ocean. And I don't want to say really too much more about what it is, simply because I think it's so short and good to experience. But it kind of shows you the creativity that you can have in this kind of realm, right? Of creating short, interactive fiction, really.
Yeah, and this is probably the best example of what you said, which is it's like Flash games grew up.
Yeah, honestly, right? Like I was like, oh, this is like the Flash games like natural progression into like this. It's so great.
It's a proper storytelling and shit. Yeah. Did you play this one, Paula, at all?
Novella, yeah. The other ones I didn't do.
The other ones you did. Well, I was going to say I know the next one you did. So why don't you tell us a little bit about how you found Six Cats Under?
Oh, so the game that Rick mentioned, I think it was last week, of this grandma character who passed away and has to let her cats out of the tiny apartment so they can be free and find their own homes and not starve to death. The first thing that got my attention was the art, because everything is like pixel art, quite simple, but it is super charming, and the attention to detail on this is amazing. Because if you ever been on a house with many cats, pretty much it looks like that in terms of what it has, and like the descriptions of all the items, because it is a point and click. And so everywhere you click, you get like this little description from the grandma character. And it is a really short experience, but solving the puzzle is really satisfying. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I just felt like it was really cozy and surprisingly wholesome given the subject matter.
I liked it. No, it's so funny. I'm apparently just shit at point and click games. I was like, what am I missing? What am I freaking missing? Like there's like one segment near there, like let's just say around the stove, where I was like, what am I missing?
I accidentally did that early, and then I had to like catch up the other steps to get to it. It's once I'd initially realized, because it sort of threw me for a loop in that I thought I'd have to individually move every single cat.
Yes, I thought the same thing. Yeah.
Actually, all you have to do is get the door open, and then they're all very clever kittens, and they sort themselves out. And it sort of hints in the descriptions of the cats which ones you probably want to like focus on. And it took me a while to click into how to get that first domino moving, but I'd already put 3 or 4 afterwards, and then it just sort of steamrolled from there.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's a lovely one and very oddly charming.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna add a little Goldie.
Yeah, man.
No.
So yeah, and then the next one, which is one I think only I played, was Snake 3310, which is like a horror game. It was another one for a jam. I like the idea. I wasn't a fan of the execution. It's another one where it's sort of quite obvious that you're locked onto a singular train track. So it puts you in a shitty situation where you don't really want to do what it's asking you to do, but you just have to hit the buttons, and that's not in service of any greater theme or anything like that. So I can't really recommend it, even at how short it was. I don't really have much to say about that. By contrast, Alex, the next game, Self, you said you had a lot of thoughts about. So the floor is yours.
Yeah, it's not that I have I shouldn't say I have a lot of thoughts. I really, really struggled with the controls in this one. It was...
Oh, really?
Yeah, extremely. To the point, like, at first I was just doing it on my like PC, and I was just trying to go in, and I was like, no, this is unplayable. So then I tried it, I plugged in a controller, and it's just... It's extremely unintuitive. And as much as I think it is excellent, and it's, like, extremely close to being, like, just amazing. But it has this thing where it's like, you know, you pull this spirit thing out of your body. So it's kind of like Celeste, right? It's this sort of 2D game, and it's screen based, and you're trying to collect these items that'll unlock your path to the next screen, which is great. But when you launch this sort of spirit out of your body, you will then kind of like fly up to it. And when you launch it out, you can tilt it either way. And it often felt like I had zero control over the tilt, and it was just like I'd push it and it was like, okay, we're gonna tilt all the way this way, and then I would do it again with the same force, and it's like, oh, but this time we'll only go a little way, and I'm like, what the fuck? Like, I was like, what? Like, why not just make this so that I can move the self independent of like this like tilting, you know what I mean? Like, it's like I would have been, it felt like it would have been more intuitive to me if it was simply mapped to my analog stick, but then I know it's also on the PC, so they're like, I can't quite do that. So what I'm hoping is that this company or this group decides to make this into a full-fledged game, put it onto and like have a console port that maps it that way, and then I will be a very happy boy who'll play the shit out of this game.
I kind of like that though. There's definitely a learning curve, because I know what you mean. At first you feel like you should be able to point down, it just goes down. But it's not. Like, you have to work within the constraints of the starting direction, and then how far you can adjust it either way with the time you've got before you have to dash back to it. I think something's lost if you then give it analog input.
Listen, I never mastered it by the end of the game, and if that's the case, you fucked up. Like,
I mean, there's only like 7 minutes of game though. In its defense,
there's more than
not
that. I played for quite a while. There's an endless mode too. Come on.
Yeah, well, I mean, in terms of base game, in terms of base game, I need to go back to it. There is a lot of extra content, and to be fair, they are talking about maybe making it a full thing. So, fingers crossed.
I don't want to shit on it too much either, because like, you know, like all of these games, I feel sort of bad like even shitting on them, because I'm just like, it's like small little groups doing their work, and so it's more like a loving critique. I'm like, this was still interesting, but. Yeah.
By contrast, there's a couple I will be shitting on later on. I'm sorry.
Oh, well, there you go.
A little bit of balance. Although the next few I'm going to be very positive about. I played a little narrative game called Nothing to Say. I don't think the game was especially clever. The concept is that you have to retrieve letters of the alphabet in order to make your way through this conversation with a very patient girl that you're on a date with. The writing saved it, because the game barely qualifies as such. You pulling the face. Did you play this one, Paula?
No, but the moment you said...
You saw the visual novel tag?
Yeah, I saw the visual novel tag, and I was like, oh no, I know what he's going to say.
But the thing is, like, there's novel games within this that I've really, really enjoyed. It's not that there has to be some gameplay, although I obviously prefer that. It's just that it doesn't really work what's there. And it's short. I'd still say if it sounds interesting, go and give it a look. Just expect to like the writing much more than you like what you have to do to get there. And that comes across way more negative than I want to be about the game, because it was a nice little experience, and I had a nice enough time with it. I had an even better time and even better gameplay, with the next one, which is A Choose Your Own Adventure. And you'll see from the itch page, it's got a really nice stylized sort of pale blue and pink pixel art. So the concept is you've got to get to a date, but you've let your room get into a bit of disrepair, and there's a load of demons in it. So you've got to find your way out of this room. It's very sort of Stranger Things, 80s sort of weird, fun horror vibe about it. And the gameplay is purely making choices about doing X or Y. There's 4 or 5 different endings. It's well written, and it's like a lot of fun to experience. I don't want to say too much to sort of give away any of the little surprises it's got.
It looks gorgeous.
But it is amazing. It's really visually expressive, and even from the title slide, you can see there's like little animations and movements within the pixel art. It's I suppose a little bit like what I was saying about Possum Country. It's got a very strong sense of style, and it really delivers on that in its execution, I think.
Nice.
Is that one that either of you touched at all or not?
No, I don't think I've touched many of the ones that you've played here, but I will be playing that, I think, because it looks neat.
Yes.
I'm so glad that I wasn't able to play as much game as you two, because I was playing my computer simulator 2021 because my computer refused to work.
Yes, you had some technical difficulties.
Poor Paula was updating.
Yeah, of the 35 roughly that we've got on the list, I think 23 of them were singularly, or I played them among others. So what's probably easier to do is stop me if you've played the one that I've also played. The next one is a game called Timeout. This is someone's like final year project. Some Singaporean student called Christopher Lee. It's very clever. I think any of the criticisms I have probably are as a result of it being one person putting something together for a university project where they probably have to document everything, justify why they do everything in written form, and they have all these extra hoops to go through. It's like a noir thing with art that's very openly based on a trailer for a game called The Last Night, if you remember that from E3 a couple of years ago, with the just stunning pixel art in 3D space, cyberpunky type thing. Anyway, so the concept is everyone has a timer above their head, how much time they've got left. And there's an economy around obtaining more time. And you are a detective sent to discover the truth behind someone selling fake time. There's a combat mechanic that's really poorly realized. There's very little agency in the way that it plays out. It's a very linear adventure, but it's set in such a way that it gives you maybe a different impression initially of how much you're going to be able to do within that space, which is a little bit frustrating. But it's really nicely put together. Obviously, it's a novel, not a novel concept, but it's a concept that's not really been explored in any detail in other mediums, in other games or anything like that. And it's pretty cool as a one-man sort of university project. So that was a nice sort of 20 odd minutes that I spent with that one. I had a good time with that. And then the next one, for anyone who's familiar with Valhalla or the upcoming Nirvana, is from their developer, Sukaban Games. It was a game jam one. It's called Sales Pitch. So the concept is you are these two girls who've woken up in a boardroom. You know you're pitching, but you don't remember what or why. And so your gameplay consists of clicking different things in the world and using them as the inspiration to answer the questions that these board members are asking you. And that extends to the board members. So there's one who looks a bit Clinton-esque. So if you click on him, you'll get various 90s inspired sort of that era answers to those questions. There's a guy with like thinning hair. So if you click on him, you'll get sort of comments about the bald facts or, various sort of puns based on that. It's purely writing. It's like a single room situation. And there's not really a win state. So it's just a case of mucking around and exploring the dialogue. But the dialogue is what that studio excels at. And it's really well put together. It got a couple of chuckles out of me. And that's one that I think I would recommend in spite of its flaws, for people to have a look at and have a muck around with. The only maybe negative is that it's a really tiny window when you download it to play. I'm not sure if you can play it online. I think you do have to download the executable, but it's like, we're talking Game Boy Advance screen resolution.
Oh, wow.
So it's like, when I played it, it's this tiny little rectangle in the middle of the screen. And I've got all my icons and my background behind it. And it's just sort of a little bit distracting that it doesn't scale up at all. But I think that's forgivable in context. It's one of those things. Now, the next one, I think one of you might have said you played. I may be misremembering.
I think Paula played this one.
Is a game called...
The game What We Behold?
Yes. So it's like a commentary on the effects of social media and the polarization of communities. It's from 2016. So it's very sort of plugged in and to an extent maybe a little bit prescient.
Ask.
Sorry, go on.
Did you have like scrambled text? Was that normal?
No. Was that your computer making more game? No, it's supposed to be normal text. It's that was a you thing, I think.
Yeah.
It's really clever. I don't want to say too much about it because as with some of the other games on this list, the magic is in the discovery and the little surprises it plays. But you should absolutely check it out. It's a great little 5 minutes. And if you like it, and if you want to explore the themes a little bit more, I can heartily recommend an article I read a few weeks back called The Internet of Beefs that talks about the same topic.
Nice.
Yeah, so the idea is to go very, very off track, that with the polarization and with everything else, social media platforms are now about exchanging drama and drawing battle lines and picking sides far more than they are about an honest debate or exchange of ideas. Mm-hmm. And it's this whole shift in the way that discourse works in the world that we live in now. Really well written, really prescient, really on the pulse in my personal view. And let's move on before we
Yeah, go ahead, Paula.
Oh, go ahead, Paula.
I just wanted to say that even if I got the scrambled text and I had no context for anything, I had no writing, just by what was happening, you could tell like what I was supposed to say on those boxes.
Yeah, it's visually very expressive. You should probably try it again with the text working, because some of the best comedy from it is in the little text that comes across the bottom.
Why don't we I was thinking, why don't we go now from the top, and we'll meet down in the middle there too, so that we can let you take just a little breather for a second.
That's probably a good idea.
And let Paula go through a couple there. And then we'll jump back again, because I'll also want a breather in a bit, because I got quite a few in there. Awesome. All right. Paula, why don't you tell us a little bit about Forest's Secret? It looks neat.
Well, that was probably the only game that I played that neither you played. And this game is so charming and so cozy, because you're an adventurer who stumbles upon this place, and you are like encouraged to check everything and help the people like around you to unravel like this little mystery, or more than mysteries, like to reach a certain place. I'm trying to keep it like as big as possible. I think this game has taken like a lot of inspiration from Zelda games, like the 2D ones, in the sense of interacting with the NPCs and how the side quests, or like how the little quests to help everyone are set up. And also, like, if you see the main characters, like, that kind of gives you like 2D Zelda vibes because of the green tunic and stuff.
It's like Zelda,
and they're like,
Doctor.
It's kind of like a Plague Doctor meets Link kind of thing. And it is adorable. And I think this is like the longest game I played out of the itch.io games. And there's like a little sequel that you can unlock if you do like all the, I think there were like 6 quests, and did like pretty much if you complete the game like 100%, you get access to the first secret Mystery of the Frost, and you can revisit the place. I haven't done that yet because I literally just beat this game like today. But I want to go back because there's no combat, but the inhabitants of this forest are so charming, and you begin like to care about everyone, even though you only talk with them like for a little bit. Like, it is written in such a way that you care about the characters and about the world. Also, there's like one item that I found like awesome, that you can get this little snail from the shop, and it will tell you if you're missing any items like in this screen.
Cute.
And it is funny because like you can like tell it to tell you or not stop. So at least for me, it didn't become like tedious or annoying, because I try to like clear the screen each time the little snail talk, but I can see it becoming like a little bit tiring if you're like just running around like from one screen to the other, and it literally says like, if you want to start listening to me, just give me a little poke in your inventory and I'll shut up. I'll be as quiet as a mice that is also a mime.
I like that.
Nice. This kind of gives me like, just looking at it, it sort of gives me like short hike vibes a little bit just from the sounds of it, you know, like this kind of like kind of quiet little sort of fun adventure. This is sort of what I think I'm going to itch for now, is when I'm like, I just need something cozy.
If you want something cozy, this is for you. Also, I think there are like a lot of Zelda references in this game.
Oh, I believe it.
That was certainly track, yeah, 100%.
So, did you play this next one too, Paula?
That's me.
Or is that you, Rick? Yeah.
So, basically, for a recent Devolver game called Disc Room, if you see anything about that, they did a jam for it. So, there's a few different games I'd played on that. This is Disc Doom. It's a basically broken like Doom type thing where you have a disc gun and you fire one disc. The physics are fucked. Don't even bother it. It's straight up broken. But I logged it because I wanted to be able to shit on something, because most of the things have been universally great, and we need some balance in this discourse. Another great thing, another Cecile Richard game, Under a Star Called Sun. Didn't hit me the same way Nevena did, but it was great. It's about someone who's stranded on a spaceship and missing a loved one. There's more meaning to it than that, but I'll leave that for the listeners and for you two to eventually get around to playing. So I think we've settled on this as someone that gets the HLTB podcast seal of approval.
Yeah, follow this lady. That's a good segue, because sorry.
Exactly.
Make your segue.
No, I'm trying to segue to you anyway. You go ahead. It's done now.
I know. I jumped in on you. Sorry. Yeah, I played another one by her called Endless Scroll, which refers to like scrolling in social media. I feel like we mentioned this once before. Maybe I'm going crazy, but like, I almost feel like, Paula, have you ever heard of this game, Endless Scroll?
No.
Okay, I'm going nuts.
I think you're crazy, but because we haven't mentioned it.
Yeah, I know. I swear to God, one day we mentioned something like this game. But anyway, so this thing it's really kind of lovely meditation on memory. And it's someone like, usually I'm not a big fan of these things. Like they're kind of reflecting on high school from years and years later. And usually I'm not like a huge fan of that, because I'm like, I don't give a shit about high school. But it really delves into something a bit deeper than that, and I don't think it's as successful as Novena, but I think it's very nice, and it's something that I was like, I liked that in the end, like occasionally I was like, I don't know, and then I'm like, oh, I'm on it, like it was just kind of that fun experience that kind of goes up and down like that. So I recommend checking that one out. Probably more impactful if you're a couple years out of high school. Then I played, so I went through a Game Boy extravaganza, let's just say. And
is this a Game Boy one, this next one?
Yeah, actually, they're all Game Boy. Strap in, boys! It's Game Boys for 10 minutes now. So I played, I'm going to start with a couple here. I'm going to jump a little bit on this, but I played this one called Magic and Legends Star Seekers, and this is a cute little game. And it's actually basically just a parent who wanted to show her sons what you could do in Game Boy Studio. And she just so openly says that. She's like, I made this little platformer for my kids just to kind of show them what you could do in this thing. And it's kind of fun. Basically, the whole thing is just like, you choose one of the boys to be, and then you like go to like 5 levels where you just are jumping up on some like platforms to grab stars. Incredibly simple. But what I think is interesting about it, and why I also recommend, if you have any interest, say, in like game design at all, I really recommend going and playing through a lot of these games, because it teaches you some lessons. And like, I don't want this to sound like a backhanded thing, but like on what not to do, or not just what not to do, but what you maybe don't realize is being done in other games, right? And like, first off, to be clear, this is a really fun, impressive little thing for just like a little experience. But the character themselves, when they jump, their jumping sort of physics and movement is very kind of loosey-goosey, right? And when you get hit by an enemy, there's no real hit detection. Like, it just kind of happens. You sort of like blink out of existence, and like the screen kind of goes like, and you're just like back at the start, and you're like, oh, what happened? You know, it's like you teleported. And it sort of reminded me, it's like, right, okay, there's a real importance to an animation to show when you've been hit, right? There's a real importance to that kind of, you know what I mean? And like, there's an importance to really trying to dial in how the character feels when they're moving and jumping. A little too fast, and your character kind of feels a little too freewheeling, right? And you're like not entirely sure where they're going to land. So yeah, I almost recommend trying it out just to sort of like see that thing if you're curious about like platforms and controls like that. But overall, it was kind of sweet. I regret nothing. I was like, oh, this is sweet and fast. And had cute little music in it too, which I do appreciate, because some of these Game Boy games do not have music, and I'm like, what the fuck? So which ruins an experience immediately. But moving on to that, there's this one called Korea and the Sunken City. Not Korea, but like Korea. I'm going to say Korea. It's with a Coria. Anyway, it's a demo for a brand new Game Boy Color game. And I have to say, first off, artwork wise, impressive. I also don't really want to like judge this one much, because it's a demo of like a game that is clearly being worked on right now, and developed. In the demo itself, there was quite a bit of repetition of enemies, and it's mostly like jumping and hitting with your sword to hit enemies, and there wasn't really any variation in it. But of course, that's just the very beginning, so I don't know. I'm a little hesitant because I'm not entirely sure that the mechanics so far feel satisfying. But I also would try it out when it comes out. Like, I'm definitely keeping an eye on this one. I think it was supposed to release in 2020, but, you know, pandemic kind of screwed them a little bit, because they're just, you know, enthusiasts. So maybe this year. We'll see. Speaking of that, I played another Game Boy game called Cosmic Courier. Neat art style in this one.
Title screen looks dope.
Yeah, it is dope. There's not a whole lot going on in it, though, but it's neat. You're basically you're trapped in limbo, which actually maybe makes sense then, because you're basically just trying to bring a package to somebody. I don't remember if there was music. I don't remember hearing music in this one, but I could be wrong. I played it on my Game Boy itself, and it also has like false endings. And here's the problem. Because you have this package, and you can just get rid of the package at one point. And I think I just clicked to be like, oh, wonder what happens. And then it was just like, thanks for playing. And I went, well, I'm not going to replay this, because, you know what I mean? Like, it was like, you know what I mean? Like, I was like, if you're going to do that, at least let me start again from that point. You know what I mean? And I was like, guess I completed it. So, I don't know. I like the art. I think it's interesting. I think it's ambitious for the Game Boy. I would like to see them maybe do a little more on this one. It could be neat. But yeah, that's all I have to say on that one. Untitled Game Boy game, which is literally what it's called. It's actually made by the developer of Game Boy Studio, and it was just done for a little Game Boy jam. There's no music in it, which is, you know, it was a game jam. He was like, I can't fucking make music, man. And like, he comments on that in the game, which I think is actually pretty cute.
I love that.
Yeah, it's basically, the game is like a Game Boy developer is like not sure what they should do for a game, and so you kind of go through like the tropes of Game Boy games in this little thing. And I thought it was just it's kind of cute, and it's a fun game to like sort of play. I'm not sure if I can like fully recommend it, because like, if you don't really like Game Boy games, you'll probably be like, what the hell is this? But if you do like them, it's fun. It's just kind of sweet. And it's neat to see what the Game Boy can do. Also, knowing that it's the creator of Game Boy Studio, I think you can forgive the fact that the sprites in it are like the Game Boy Studio sample sprites, and because, you know, he made those. So I'm like, okay. I think it's free. I think it's fair for him to use them in his game. And again, this was done in like, you know, 48 hours, right? So another Game Boy game, There's Nothing to Do in This Town, is really neat and sadly broken. So I literally got to a point where the game broke. It told me what I needed to do next, and I did literally everything I possibly could, but I hit it told me like, you need to go collect this thing from the record store. and then I go to the record store and it was stuck in a previous loop, and the character was saying something else but wouldn't recognize that I had done this thing. And so I was like, guess I'm done with the game.
Yeah. I like the description, though. It's inspired by my crushing depression and written during the 2020 lockdown, but before the 2020 zombie apocalypse.
Yeah. I still think try it out because I think it is neat and kind of weird, but sort of fun. Just know, though, that like there's a good chance you won't be able to progress further, which kind of sucks.
I'll probably try it regardless. That looks like one I could get behind.
Yeah.
As does the next one, in fairness, Murder Mansion.
Oh, which I'm so sad to report on this one. I'm so sad. This has... so, okay. I broke this game in like 5 minutes.
On his face.
Yeah, I have a lot of despair because I was really excited for this too. I thought it looked so neat. It has no music, by the way, which you never realize how much music makes a difference in these things. Even if you're watching TV and you can't really hear it, you just need it, you know? But anyway, I'm not going to fault them too much if they can't make music. It's fine. A lot of game developers, and I see this with playwrights too, and I see this with all early creatives, when they go to make a game, they kind of try to be sometimes irreverent, and they're afraid of sincerity, you know, like, so like actually creating, like, I think this person wants to make a murder mystery game, but their character is a little like, oh, like, I'm no good at this, you know what I mean? Like, it's just kind of like a little jokey and like kind of quirky and odd, and I'm like, quirky is not a character, right? Quirky is a trait, not a character. So what I miss in this is like, I would like to see characters, you know, with personality. And some of the characters in it do definitely have that, but sometimes they're just more caricature than character. And that's really important in a Game Boy game. You really need character in a Game Boy game because it's so limited that if you don't have strong characterization, I just don't care. Right. And all of this is moot because I went down into I broke the sequence. Clearly there was a very elaborate sequence you had to go through. I went down and I was exploring the murder mansion because, you know, that's the whole point. I have to like solve the murder. And I went into the basement and there was, you know, a fucking push the boxes game there, and I did it. And then I was like, oh, there's nothing here. And then I walked back up, and turns out I had to go talk to the chef first. And when I talked to the chef, when I went back down, the puzzle was solved, but the collision detection blocks were still in place. So when I moved and I got to talk to him, when I went to turn around and complete, the fucking invisible boxes wouldn't let me move. There. And I was like, I can't do anything. I'm literally stuck. Like, I was like, oh no. So I just was like, I'm not bothering redoing it because who knows what's going to happen, right? I can't guess the sequence because I'm just a player, right? So a good lesson in making sure that your game doesn't bust on sequence progression, right? You make sure that there's some continuation there. But anyway, a couple lessons there. Characterization is important, which fortunately the next game does extremely well. So there's this other one called The Year After, and I will have to say, I do have a slight bone to pick with this game because it has beautiful music, but the music doesn't work on the Game Boy, so it only works in the browser. Right? So I'm kind of like, why don't you make a Game Boy game, bruh, if you can't play the music in the Game Boy? Like, I'm like,
there's quite a few of those, you know. There's quite a few games on it where they say, made in GB Studio, runs on Windows or browser.
Yeah.
Sorry, thanks, Chief. You couldn't have compiled a ROM for me.
I know, and like the Game Boy, you can put music in Game Boy Studio. It does work. I've played many games that do it very well. There's one later that does it incredibly well, right? So I'm just like, 100%. Learn how to do it, man. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I'm always like, play within the limitations. You know, that's the point. If you're using Game Boy Studio, work with the limitations. Don't get greedy. But this game got greedy, and it was also really great. So maybe I'm wrong, but basically, it's like enjoy that sound, everybody. This is a visual novel-ish, and I don't want to talk too much about it, but it's just a walking simulator. You're just walking through this world, but you're seeing the story of this couple, and it's actually quite beautiful. And you think you know where it's going, and then it'll go somewhere else. The ending's a little ambiguous, but I kind of dig it. And I really recommend playing this. It's quite touching. It's quite touching, actually. Okay, let's move along then. We're almost back to you, Rick. We're getting there.
Almost, we're getting there.
Yeah. Quest Arrest. Okay, so this is just me, and I gotta preface this a little bit. Fuck the police is basically what I'll sort of say, first off. And
no politics, woo!
No, I have to bring it in on this because I actually think it's very important with this game. So this game, because the first thing you have to do in this game is arrest a homeless person. And they're not doing anything. They're just there. And there's the mechanics of this game. It's like Pokemon battles where you can arrest them. You have to like get them down to a thing, arrest them, or you kill them. And if you kill them, the town like gets mad at you and like angry and stuff. But I'm like, it doesn't feel like, I don't think this game is equipped to have a social commentary on policing. Let me just put it that way. And
okay.
Yeah, right? Like as I started and I was like, I'm done. I'm not doing this. Like I can't do this. Like I don't want to make a game of this. It feels gross. It feels to me like, for instance, some people really don't mind playing like World War II shooters and stuff, right? Like there was a time where I dug that so much. I loved playing it. And then one day I was sitting there playing it and I went, I feel really uncomfortable because I'm just realizing like this is a real world experience, right? And now I've gamified it. And look, if you enjoy
both are valid, yeah, 100%.
Exactly, right? And for this one in particular, and also I'll just be real here, the pixel art's not great. The backgrounds kind of blend in a little bit together. It was made by one dude, and I'm just like, bad subject choice, man. Bad subject choice. Interesting dynamics and stuff, but I don't want to friggin' play as a cop. And like homeless people and stuff, I don't know. It reinforces the idea that they're criminals and stuff. And I'm like, they're not, man. The dude was just chilling out. He wasn't even breaking a law. What the hell? There's no like commentary on it. So anyway, that's my little rant on Quest Arrest. Play if you want, but there's way better things to do out there, you know?
And in a complete tonal shift, I can't imagine anything different. And also, before we get onto this, I have to say, it's a hallmark of a really thoughtful development. You still liking that?
Sorry, I'm liking the transition, but yeah, keep going. Yeah.
It's a sign of a thoughtful developer that when you play it on the Game Boy Advance, it's got like a custom border to fill up the whole GBA screen. Because I played this one as well. This is Tobu Girl Deluxe.
I love this game so much.
I haven't played much of it, but it is really, really professional, I'd say. It feels like a proper thing. And obviously, you could buy it as a proper cartridge with a box and all the bells and whistles. Really stands up in its own right, just as a Game Boy game, not as an itch thing or as a homebrew or as anything else. It's like Doodle Jump. It's like a vertical climber, but it has a dash and a hover mechanic. And it also has proper levels.
Yeah.
So you have a timer counting down. You have a progression bar up on the right-hand side. I look forward to coming back to it and giving it proper attention at some point. I played it a little bit so that we could talk about it today. Really liked it. Thought, that's pretty cool. I'm going to come back to that. And on that point, just to keep a little bit of balance, shall we go back to where we were before and then come back up?
Yeah, sure.
Partially as well. Because I think Paula played this one as well as me, and I apologize for recommending it to you. And it is City of Muse. Did you play this one?
Actually, no. I wasn't able to.
Don't. It's fine. Don't. Do not.
Okay.
It is like everything wrong with walking simulators. And it's a shame because actually initially the visuals are quite nice. It's like it reminded me of a game that I played a few months back, and it's a free one, and I'd recommend it to people, called Liquidators on Steam, if you remember me talking about that one. It's fine if you don't. We've talked about lots of games since there. But it's like a bald polygonal assets with a pixel art sort of dithery filter over the top. And as a visual effect, it's really lovely and it's really well done. But there's just fuck all done with it. So basically, the concept is you're in this city and there's like these random human-shaped things. They're green. I think they're supposed to be shrubbery. Talking about this muse, but they don't really say much of anything. Like it's, I think it's supposed to convey deeper meaning, but there just is no deeper meaning. It's just trying to hide how vapid it is. And what that descends into is you, for 3 minutes, walking through this village, and then you have to like voluntarily jump into a well. So you've learnt nothing. You jump into this well. You're in this random demon place, and then this thing in the shape of a statue that was in the village comes flying at you, and then the game closes itself. And that's it. Yeah, fuck it, honestly. I've given it much more time and attention than it deserves at this point. Let's leave it and move on to 2 more Disc Jam games. The first one is Bouncing Blade Blitz. So you whack the disc back and forth against the wall. You want to like keep a combo going. It's multiplayer. There's not really much else to say about it. I think it's probably a lot of fun if you have a second person. I played it once and got very bored with it. It's like there's not really a lot there. And then the next one is one called Disco Room. So it's like a red and black Virtual Boy style filter. You're on a circle, and it's like survive as long as possible. So you can move left and right. And if you stop by pressing both directions, you can shoot upwards. So you have to try and destroy some of the discs when you've got a spare moment, so it doesn't just become overwhelming. Really well put together, actually. It's a shame that there's only the one mode. There's not really much reason to come back. But it's really nice. Gave me sort of Downwell vibes, both visually and in terms of the loop being what it is. I quite liked it. It's one of the better ones I've played through this itch experience. The next one, and I'm curious if either of you played this, because there's a lot to say on this one. No players online.
Sadly, no. Looks
no?
neat.
Okay. It does. The only problem is, like,
there's no players.
It's sort
online?
of a
Sorry.
poor.
Hey!
Even by my standards, that's poor.
You have standard, Rick?
Apparently so. Apparently so. Well, if you want to be a host on next week's episode. So the problem with this game is it relies on some ARG elements. And one of those involves you emailing an email address that clearly at one time had a bot associated with it. No longer does. The only reason I could make anything from it is that someone's done like a video of their experience going through it and details everything that you have to do. So I was able to obtain the clue that should have been emailed back to me from that and progress the game. It's a shame because what's there is quite clever, very unique. Maybe could have respected your time a little bit more. There's a couple of sort of repeated sections, but really clever in what it does and how it, as a one-man experience, makes you jump through all these hoops and has all these steps put together and played out. I would say, because the video's in the comments on the game, I would say you're probably better off watching that video than you are actually playing the game. Because while it's clever, it doesn't really work in its own right anymore, which is a shame. But thematically, it's nice. It does the whole sort of PS1 horror vibe kind of thing, which was pretty cool. I was a fan of that. Yeah, it's just a shame I can't recommend it. And on that note, one I definitely can't recommend is a game called Approaches. And I say game. It gives you a pretend puzzle to try and solve for a few minutes until it does its one little set piece. Fuck this game. It's not good. It's not good. Don't bother.
Oh.
Yeah, no, I don't want to give it any more time than that. It's not any fun at all. Next, and I'll skip ahead because it's sort of on the topic of Game Boy. Or actually, no, I won't, because once we get to that, there's 3 more of your Game Boy games, Alex, and that's it. So we're almost there. We're nearly there. Next one was a visual novel called Koshka's Coffee. And it's about a girl whose estranged father dies and leaves her the coffee shop. So it's a little bit like Valhalla in that you've got this visual novel and then you're also making people drinks when they come into the store. Obviously, it's much smaller in scope. It also maybe sets expectations too high. the description on the page gives the impression that there's going to be sort of choices to make when actually it's a linear story and that choice is predetermined. So that was kind of disappointing when I got to it and that thing had happened. I was like, oh, I thought I'd have a say in that, which was a shame. But it's nice how it's written. I like, without giving anything away, what is quite a bold choice in the way that it resolves that story. And I think it's one that's worth looking at. It's definitely unique in the way that it goes. And also, award-winning. It was selected for an international film festival, which is pretty cool. Yeah. So definitely go and check that out. And if you like that, you'll probably also like a game called Bird of Passage, which is a short... I'm trying to think what it reminds me of. It reminds me of something, but the thing escapes me. Basically, it's a thematic kind of thing. So you are a lost soul in the back of a cab, trying to find your way out of purgatory, I suppose. Trying to find some closure. And you have these conversations with the different taxi drivers. You explore choices. It's very much a mood piece, albeit with sort of a very specific narrative to tell within it. I really liked it. For an itch game, the art is beautiful. The music is amazing. I wrote down the composer's name and I'll find it in a minute because it turned me on to their music, and their music is actually very, very good. They're a very good composer. I really liked their music in it. Emilio Pozzolini is the composer. Their name's in the credits if you want to find out that's spelled. But the audio work and the visual work really are lovely, and they make it because it's most of what the game has going for it. I had a lovely time with it. It's sort of the running theme of a lot of these experiences on Itch. It's like a really excellent window in which to tell a short narrative. Almost a different spin on the stuff that the 10 milligram games collections did, where that was more mechanically focused. A lot of what is on Itch is a vehicle to tell its own little story or evoke a specific mood or feeling. And I think that's really nice, and it's something that this game particularly did very, very well, as did Novena. And then the last one of my games, and it will be a nice segue back into the last few of yours, Alex, is a Game Boy game called Dull Ache. Does have music, and really good music. It's really nice audio. This is a game where you are a skeleton trapped in a dungeon and you have to make your way out. So it's like a short adventure game. There's a number of fail states, but there's sort of one specific path through. Both mechanically very interesting in terms of the puzzles that it gives you to solve, but also tells a really nice story, which surprised me. It felt like the story would be sort of a vehicle for the adventure, but it asks some quite deep moral questions of you, which caught me by surprise. Don't want to say much more than that. I think this is really one that people should go and have a crack at. I had an excellent time with it, and it's a fun one to play on original hardware. And I'm actually looking forward, just before I let you get back to the last few of yours, Alex, to playing quite a few more of these on original hardware, because there is definitely something to be said for having it on the console, having the little buttons, particularly awesome. Particularly with the flash cart. I don't know if you can do it on the GBC one, but on the Easy Flash for the Game Boy Advance, the Game Boy emulator that they use, you can pause anywhere by opening the emulator menu, and you can sleep it from that emulator menu as well. So it's a really excellent way to experience those games, I've found.
Yeah, I mean, if you have an EverDrive on the Game Boy Color, you can just save state. Anyway, that's what I've been doing with them, and it works great.
Nice.
Nice. So this one actually isn't a Game Boy one, but might as well be. It's from a D-Make game jam. It's called BioEvil 4. It is Resident Evil 4 Ghost and Goblins. That's exactly what this game is. It is brutal and amazing. Like, it is extremely satisfying, and really worth a try. Like, look, you're probably not going to get really friggin' far in this thing. I think there's only like maybe a level where I think maybe the chainsaw dude is the end. I didn't beat it, but I had a blast at first. It's like, it is one of those games where you're like, God damn it. God damn it. And you're like, but like in a satisfying way where you're like, no, I'm going to get it. I'm going to get it. Really great, really tastefully done. just a really excellent example of a demake because, you know, it's nothing like Resident Evil 4, and yet it is, you know? Like, it feels like it could have been a fun companion piece to it on, like, the Game Boy Color or the Game Boy Advance, probably more likely, you know? And you're like, it feels like it would have fit there nicely. I'm going to end on the highest of highs. So, also, Dedius, whatever it is on our list here as well. But I've talked about the game at length already, and I think everyone should give it a shot. So, like, give it a play. But another Game Boy game, and I played the Game Boy Color version of this, which you have to pay $3 for, and I think it's worth the $3. Probably worth more than that. But you can also just get the like Game Boy version totally for free. And that's Pine Creek. And Pine Creek is a murder mystery game. Although I just noticed they spelled mystery with an I. Anyway, it's fine. I believe
so they did.
I believe the developer's second language. I believe English is the developer's second language. But they actually just 17 days ago, I guess. I didn't even realize this. They put a patch that like fixed any sort of spelling mistakes. I haven't really noticed many. I've occasionally noticed a slightly awkward phrasing of something, but it's never been like, oh, look at that. Like overall, the writing's like quite good and quite natural. And basically, you're this kind of young boy in this sort of like rural-esque town. You know, your parents run this cafe next to your house, and one day you're just going to see your friend, and the cops are like all outside her house, and you sneak in to find that like there has been a ritual something. There's a friggin' bloody finger there, and like this sort of like weird diagram on the floor, and you have to sort of solve the mystery from there. And it's like really clever. It's quite beautiful in parts. And the conversations are sort of fun and actually interesting. And there's really excellent characterization that goes on throughout it. Like everyone feels like a person in the game. And I'm just really impressed, honestly. Like it's made by two people, basically one dude, pretty much. And it's in English, Spanish, and they've got a translation into Portuguese.
Nice.
Which also, this is something, and I want to ask you about this, Paula, too. Something I've been noticing is that there is a ton of Game Boy development that seems to be happening in like Central and South America. Like I've noticed tons of Spanish language games on the Game Boy side of things, and like names where I'm just like, what's going on down there? Like there's some really incredible stuff going on. Like, have you seen people, like, is this a thing that you have, like, what is the indie scene like in Chile? I'm wondering. I don't know if these developers are in Chile at all. I think they're in other parts of South America. But I'm just curious if you've ever noticed anything, or if this is new to you as well.
I mean, like people over here. I feel like people in South America, in particular, are like really creating individuals that don't get much of a chance to actually like develop for bigger companies unless they pretty much hit the jackpot.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of the time, like itch-stravaganza games or like trying to make like these smaller like Game Boy games like are, in my opinion, a bit of an outlet for those people. Actually, like in the global game jams that I've been, there's a lot of people.
Yeah,
like there's a ton of people that come from all over Chile just to partake in those, because there's like for the global game jam you have to go to a specific place and make a group there, and I don't know like how many of these places are like in Chile when they happen, but it seems there aren't many, because at least I had to go to the capital when I'm like at my parents' house, like on summer. I have to come here to the capital to actually like partake in these events. And there are like demos of games that people present on this, and some of them look like quite finished. And I feel like there's a lot of talent here, and there are like a lot of indie developers here. And I actually know some of those, but can't really say names here. But there's a big indie scene like here.
Nice. Yeah. Well, I think, mark my word, there's going to be some cool shit coming out of there. Because like I said, I mean, I'd even recommend like playing Pine Creek in Spanish. I'm sure the writing in that is probably even better than the English version. And it's just like, yeah, I don't know. Looking through it, I felt like I'm just like, oh, there's some talented people here, you know, like I can just looking on itch. So yeah.
And if you want to try that or any of the games that we've mentioned here, as we said at the beginning, the itch link is going to be in the description, and as well as just all the games we played generally, you can find specific lists for recommendations, things that you can expect great things from, and games that Paula approves of.
Oh god.
Only the best puns for this podcast.
I think that's pretty good,
did
though,
you
right?
get mad when they said you have no standards?
I wrote these before then, so it had no bearing on that. But that has been noted and taken under consideration.
Yeah. Well, there's tons of games. I mean, geez, I think our played list, it's like at least 30 something games, maybe more. So if you're itching for some new games, go check it out. Shall we close off with everyone's favorite segment? How long to beat the game?
How long to beat the game?
I didn't know we were going to all do it together.
We
Sorry.
Well,
Rick, what are we playing this week?
We've already done that. Believe it or not, it went to Dragon Ball Xenoverse, which we've actually done.
Oh, no.
So let's shuffle again. Nope. Shuffle again. Oh, I've definitely got a slight advantage. Actually, do we want anthologies? I feel like that's just asking for trouble. Shall I re-roll that?
What is the anthology?
Metal Slug Anthology.
Oh, yeah. I don't know.
Yeah,
Let's re-roll.
Re-roll.
Because I don't even know what games are in that one. Yeah.
I mean, I can tell you. That's sort of the point. I'm literally playing it right now. Let's shuffle again. Oh, okay. Ratchet and Clank, All for One.
Oh, okay. I'm down for that. Ratchet and Clank All for One. Okay. Yeah, this is another good one for you.
Albeit it's not one I've played. It's not one I plan to play. It reviewed very poorly. It's got like a co-op focus, and it's built sort of specifically around that in a way that's not great, if you believe what the reviewers said, which is a shame. I think I have an idea of what I'm saying, though.
Yeah, let me see. This is a PS3 game from 2011. Man, isn't that nuts? You're like, hey. That's 10 years ago.
A decade ago.
I know. Dear God. Yeah. Oh, I remember. I think seeing stuff on this.
Multiplayer.
Yeah. A 4-player cooperative multiplayer mode. Yeah. Interesting.
And it was designed around the co-op, and it was criticized for being very bland and just not really feeling like a proper Ratchet and Clank game.
So Marvel's Adventures.
Yes, basically.
Honestly, though, right?
But yeah, so I am going to go 888 for everything.
Yeah.
Because I think it was like a 6-hour game, roughly. But I'm going to take that 5-hour leeway, and I think that everything should fall roughly within that.
Yeah. I'm going to go 10-10-10 for me, at least.
Ooh.
Because I don't think it's any shorter than that. Maybe I'll go 11 for 100%. Let's just be crazy.
I can't handle this right now. What are you saying, Paula?
I'm trying to think of another like multiplayer experiences, but I feel like Ratchet and Clank is gonna be like shorter than the Zelda First Source and First Source Adventures. So. So I'm gonna go for 8 for main. I don't know how collectibles are in the Ratchet and Clank game, so I'm gonna go 9 for main plus, and
I think we're like all in the same range, basically. 9 for 100, 9.5 for 100.
9.5.
9.5 for 100.
I like that.
What? This is either just going to be. This is going to be all for everyone, or like someone's going to get fucked on a technicality.
You mean on the game? Yeah. Okay. So what do we got here, Rick? Let's see.
Are we all locked in? Are we all ready to go?
I think so.
No, go anyway.
Okay. So Oh, I think we've all fucked it.
Oh no.
Main story 10.5.
Oh shit.
Main plus 13. Completionist is 17 hours.
I was so close. I was 1 hour off. God damn it. I knew I should have gone up higher on that. Shit.
Oh, so that's no points for everybody. And for one more week at least, my small lead persists.
Yeah. Oh, that could have been a game changer for me. Could have been a game changer, but it wasn't. Oh, well. Wow. Thanks for tuning in for our itch-stravaganza.
Come back next week for a return to normal programming.
Yeah, as normal as we get.
Wow. Speak for yourself.
We gotta do that like every other week now.
Yeah, seriously.
Yeah, it sort of has been, hasn't it? Oh, dear. Wow. Until next time, take it easy, everybody.